react to the fact that we leave Afghanistan with hundreds, at least, of American people still there?
What's interesting is I've never seen a military operation done to where the timeline, dictates the mission, right? It's usually, the mission dictates the timeline. So if you've got a timeline, but the mission calls for something else, you adjust the timeline. Now, I know that they negotiated with the terrorists, the Taliban, and supposedly that's what, they said that they were going to allow us to do what we needed to do to evacuate. But if it was past the August 31st deadline, then, they would, I don't know if they would start attacking or what. But my response would be, who cares, at that point. And they're being so willy-nilly with the numbers. So we go back to, Saki saying that they don't know how many Americans are there. Then for, like an official count of 10 to 15,000, which that was an actual quote, 10 to 15,000. So you're telling us there was 5,000 that you're just kind of not sure about that are in the country. Then they go and say that they've evacuated like 5,100 Americans. Okay, so that doesn't, let's go to the lowball number of your 10
or 15,000.
That's not 10 or 15. So are there 5,000 still out? Because they're saying that there's all around 200 or so Americans that are still stranded in Afghanistan.
But is 200 greater than zero? I'm missing this.
Right.
I mean, our whole point here is we were told by the president when he told George Stephanopoulos they will have this deadline means nothing if Americans are still there.
Right.
And what meant nothing were his words.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. This has got to be a first that the military, and even said, I think the military actually said, I can't remember which figurehead said it, but said that, we didn't get everybody, but we did the best we could. That is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
So let's go through some of the left's arguments here as it applies to this. I think you can consistently say this was a complete and utter catastrophe, but also, given the circumstances that they had, they did airlift a lot of people out in a short amount of time under a lot of stress. I give the military credit for that, though, not the president.
No. Politics has driven everything on this. Absolutely everything. And let's go back to the election. They reoriented the entire establishment from the DOJ, Department of Homeland Security, the intelligence community, and the military. They completely reoriented them to look interior, to look inside, and find out all these crazy white supremacists that were just falling out of the rafters. There's everywhere, apparently. So many of them. The Secretary of Defense stood the military down to look for them. The intelligence community and the Department of Homeland Security said that white supremacists were the number one threat to the country, which is just an absolutely ridiculous statement. But that's what they were looking at. That's where the people that are not supposed to be politicized. So they're not supposed to be politicized. But the Biden administration and the Democrats wanted to ride the coattails of the January 6th riot and seize that moment and redirect everyone looking for these crazy right-wing extremists. That was their focus. Politicized from the very beginning. And yes, I do think that went into us being, not as prepared as we should have. Then you fast forward to negotiations with the Taliban, which is hilarious to me. Negotiating with terrorists. They're negotiating with the terrorists, and the terrorists say, this is outlined in a devastating article, I think it was in the Washington Post, I believe. But the terrorists said, look, you guys can have Kabul up until the deadline, which was August 31st, today. You guys can have Kabul, secure it, whatever, just get the heck out of our country, basically. Or we'll take charge of it, and you just take the airport. Well, they took the airport. Now, a lot of people that...
Meaning the American people.
Yeah.
The Joe Biden selected, we'd rather have just the airport than the whole city. Right. Now, there's no reason for us to, there's no strategic reason to do that. It's just if we might need more troops, right, to potentially secure the entire city, and Biden didn't want to commit anybody.
And that's where the politics come in for this as well. He just did not want to be, he didn't want the headline saying Biden is putting in 5,000 more troops to secure Kabul, or not even to secure Kabul, just to secure like a corridor from where the Americans and our allies were along that main route to get to the airport, which when I came on here last time, we showed that little corridor that they needed. That's what they needed to secure right there. And yes, it probably would have taken 5,000-6,000 soldiers, but guess what? He had to do that anyway, and an oh crap button when he hit it to secure the airport. The entire debacle, all of that chaos was because they chose the political move of not wanting to have those headlines. That's it. So politics has driven this ever since January. ever since January. And just for the mere fact that he didn't want a bad headline, that's why the chaos happened.
And so, and to your point here, we covered this earlier this week, Bagram Air Base, where this would have been the type of situation would have been really helpful to have that, obviously, in this situation. And the excuse was we couldn't secure Bagram and the airport. We had to choose one or the other. Now, first of all, we're the United States of America. That's ridiculous. But when you read the actual statement from the military, what they say is we couldn't secure them both with only 600 or 700 troops, and that was what we were required to have. So the decision is made, again, politics driving the mission, not the mission driving the politics. They decided to say we're going to have the 600 on this day, no matter what is going on, and that wound up burning us in a massive way.
Right. And the amount of troops obviously was not a sticking point for the Taliban because they knew as well that we'd have to pull in more troops to secure the greater Kabul area. So that was not the sticking point. So it was fine with the Taliban. It was fine with the terrorists for us to, do that mission. But it wasn't fine for Biden and his lackeys that apparently I'm amazed that the institutions that, are supposed to protect us, they're not supposed to be political. But the Biden administration has politicized the hell out of them. And I mean, there's just no other way to look at it right now. I cannot believe if you're the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, if you're Milley, if you're Secretary of Defense, Austin, I don't know how you look at yourself in the mirror without resigning. General Mattis, right? So agree with him, don't agree with him. He quit after, he resigned himself after the Syria pullout. He was not happy with that. I served under Mattis, and I love him for his battlefield experience and for his command of my unit specifically when we were in Afghanistan. Some people criticize him for leaving the Trump administration the way he did. But at least give him the credit of knowing when to step down, right?
Right.
Like, he did not agree with the president. He was going to be vocal about it. He didn't agree with it. He stepped down. What's the excuse of Lloyd Austin and General Milley? What is their excuse, right? I mean, there's no way. I'm gonna try not to cuss anymore. There's no way in heck that they said, yes, Mr. President, we should abandon Bagram Air Base. There is no way.
No way.
There is no way. There is no way that they didn't hint at the coming chaos that would happen of not securing the Kabul city as a whole, bringing in all those additional troops instead of hitting the oh crap button and then bringing the troops in anyway. There's no way.
No.
So they're either incompetent or I don't know what, but they need to resign. They need to step down.
Yeah, I don't know whether, frankly, I have real trouble trusting Milley in particular because of some of the comments he's made recently. But like all the reporting is, and this was likely fueled by Milley and Austin's behind the scenes, leaking to reporters, but all the reporting is they were all over Biden and saying like, here's other options. Let's not do this way. And Biden ignored him because he wanted to pull out. And there's a column today in the New York Times by their conservative columnists, one of their two conservative columnists, who says, look, this is, yes, this went really badly at the end. But the bottom line is the people who had this thing going for 20 years are now arguing we should have been in there for longer. And you can't trust them. And, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. And this is just the price you pay.
Well,
I don't think he'd be uncomfortable with that summary, but you can read the piece yourself if you think that's overly summarizing his point.
It's ridiculous to compare the need for us to pull out of a 20-year war and the way that they pulled out of a 20-year war.
Right.
It was also the Trump administration's goal to pull out of Afghanistan. They're the ones that negotiated it to begin with. Talk to any libertarian or most conservatives, they would say, yes, we need to end this war and get out. That is not really an argument. There are some people that said we should have kept 2,000 soldiers there almost indefinitely until we knew for sure. When's that going to be? They wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah. But again, 2,000 troops, if they're not in harm's way, we have 50,000 troops in South Korea right now. We have 35,000 troops in Germany. Do we count that? Is Germany our longest war? Like, I don't look at it that way. The point is, are people out there in the middle of conflicts? Are we trying to break up civil wars? I understand Afghanistan and Germany are much different, but that's the way to look at whether you have an ongoing war or not. The idea that if we have Bagram Air Base and a perimeter around it secured, to be able to respond to something that might happen in that area, that's not an ongoing war. It's an ongoing presence. And some people, like libertarians, really don't like that. But that's totally different than the way it's being promoted in the media to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument. I guess the continued use of Bagram Air Base for as long as we see fit. It's not out of the realms of normalcy everywhere else in the world. Right. I mean, we've got bases everywhere.
I'll give you Guantanamo.
Right.
It's Cuba.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I guess his point though is, look, there was always going to be a reason to keep troops there. There was always going to be a reason to not pull out. But several presidents in a row have said it's time to get out. And Biden, there was bad consequences at the end, but Biden pushed through it because the overarching point of we needed to get out, this needed to end. He was right on, and we should give him a break. That's it's not just the New York Times saying that. There are the media's trying to find a way for Biden to get out of this catastrophe, and I think that's the way they're trying to go with it. You
cannot give him a break. It's so ridiculous, and that's the argument they're using, that we needed to get out.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I'm not really arguing that. I mean, I think you could make your argument that you just said of more of a continued presence like at Bagram, places like that. You could make that argument. If you wanted to say just barrel on the lines of we need to get out, you still have to deal with his handling of the evacuation, of those final moments. You cannot give him a pass there.
No.
I don't know how. You're either just lying or you're carrying water or I don't know what, but it's indefensible. You cannot defend the way they did it.
Yeah, and part of this, too, is like the war itself is a 20-year period spanning multiple presidents, all sorts of generals and leaders and all of this, and it's sort of hard to unwind who's at fault. It's not hard to unwind this one.
Yeah.
You can say you don't like the way Trump negotiated with the Taliban, and I have some sympathy for that position. However, like if Joe Biden came into office, was inaugurated on August 8th, I'd give him a real break here. The guy it was January. He had months before the initial date, which he moved back, and still blew it like this. I have no sympathy for him on this particular point.
Yeah.
Let me move on a little bit, though, before we run out of time. You accompanied Glenn, along with a very small group, on his trip to the Middle East here when it comes to the Nazarene Fund and everything, all the work that's going on. What can you tell us about what happened?
Very productive trip. We tried to broadcast. I think we pulled it off most days. One day was kind of shaky. There was a couple times in the middle of the interviews, Glenn, we'd just go to color bars, and I'd be like, that's right, Congressman. What do you think about Afghanistan? Right.
We had a couple of those moments.
But no, very productive trip, and it helped us get closer to the time zone that the guys we were reacting with in real time that were doing all of this. The guys on the ground were phenomenal. Our little detachment was in contact with them pretty much 24 hours a day. It was pretty crazy. We were kind of on the time. We're still on Central Time Zone here in the United States doing radio and TV. But then we're staying up all through the night to try and coordinate with other time zones on where we're going to take the refugees that we got out, where are we going to put them. And so now it's pretty much, I think even today, they're still trying to coordinate some last minute flights out of Kabul. But now the mission is kind of going towards, and this is kind of where we were transitioning over the last day or so that we were in the Middle East, on how we're going to get them out of like intermediate countries where they're just kind of holding them there.
Yeah.
And to get them to their forever homes.
Yeah, because mission one is to get them out of harm's way in the immediate term, but it's a lot. There's a lot more to the job than that.
Yeah, and it's really kind of crazy because normally you would think the State Department or something like that, they're the ones that would be heading initiatives like this. This is all privately directed. So you have private citizens, and there was a couple of individuals that were part of our group. And man, I hope a movie is made out of what they were able to pull off, because they were nonstop on the phones. They're speaking English to us, pushing mute and speaking English to this, shifting into another language, talking to heads of state. I mean, it was wild. But that's where they're at now. And I think hopefully within the next few days or week or so, we'll be able to actually say when they give us the authorization, where they're going to end up going. But God was involved in this entire thing. I saw some amazing things, and I cannot wait till those final details come out.
Well, I would love this story to be told as well, but if a Hollywood movie is made about it, you're going to be the bad guy, right? Like the Nazarene Fund will be like the villain of the story, being rescued from the very wonderful and loving Taliban.
Yeah, it'll be a Netflix production by the Obamas, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Jason Buttrell, head writer and researcher for Glenn Beck.